Ever wanted to bring your artistic vision to life in a video game? It's not as easy as one might think. Getting a team on board with your vision requires a structured process, and we're going to let you in on how the pros do it. We are Ask Gamedev, and this is how to art direct a video game. Welcome back. We make videos on how to elevate your game development and inspire others. If after watching this video you want to continue the game dev conversation, check the video description for a link to our Discord server. So before we start, one caveat. Good art directors perform a broad array of tasks when making great games. There is simply no way in a 10-minute video to teach everything about how to lead art design at a professional level. However, we've worked with some great art directors over the years, and we've noticed that while they are all different in approach, the best ones have a similar method to setting the artistic goals for their games. This video outlines that process and how the best art directors create beautiful games. Please note, for this video we are going to showcase visuals from the recently released cinematic platformer, Stela. In full transparency, we at Ask Gamedev worked on this title and think the art team created a gorgeous looking game. Hopefully the art can illustrate some of the points we are looking to make in this video. First things first, step 1 is to have a high-level artistic vision for the game. This artistic vision typically comes after first understanding the game genre and broad direction for the gameplay, and these details typically come from conversations with the game designer. The visual direction can be a very loose thing during the early stages of pre-production. Part of the creative process with an artistic vision involves iteration and soliciting feedback from the other key development stakeholders. In fact, the importance of feedback cannot be overstated. Feedback is the one constant principle throughout the process reviewed in this video. At every stage, the best art directors solicit opinions on their vision. So, the initial fence posts around the vision need to be set, and they can address a number of different artistic areas. This includes the intended direction with art concepts like lines, shapes, colors, textures, tones, forms, spaces, or depth. You will need to determine what's important to your specific design. A great place to start is the intended game audience and what their expectations are. Research your game genre and figure out what typically works and what doesn't. For example, indie games can get away with pixel art and other low-fidelity approaches, but AAA games typically come with higher expectations around visuals. Be sure you understand how your vision can stand out. Another good process to help with defining the initial fence posts is to whiteboard a mind map session with key stakeholders to identify visual themes. This process creates visual pillars that the team can all agree upon. We like to pick 3 main themes, but your process might uncover a different number. These visual themes can change, but by defining them from a high-level perspective, you can now discuss each piece objectively rather than subjectively. The very next step is to research your vision by collecting reference materials. These are pieces of existing art or media that are in line with your artistic direction. They are not exact to your vision, but in partnership with other similar art, speak to a general approach. What are these reference materials supposed to show? Well, that is completely specific to the type of game you're making. If it's a racing game, the reference material might be cars, drivers, or tracks that are in line with your vision. If it's a match 3 game for mobile, it may be a grid or puzzle layouts. This early concepting should focus on the most important visual aspects of your game and try to showcase existing approaches for how those elements might look similar. And it's not always characters or environments that are most important. If the game is screen-heavy or uses its heads-up display in a significant way, an art director could elect to collect reference material on the direction they might be looking for in those game elements. There are endless elements that you might focus on with the pieces you choose. Is it their color palette, their use of scale and dimension, their typography, the detail or lack of? Again, think about your specific vision and what is important. It's popular for art directors to make collages of these reference images, and they are often printed out and placed on boards in public places in the interest of gaining team alignment, encouraging feedback, and building excitement. Once reference images have been collected, the new step is to typically create a closer look at one key element of the visual design. This is usually a detailed sketch created by an illustrator or a concept artist, but can be virtually any type of asset depending on your specific artist, version, and game direction. This first illustration will likely align with the reference material that was collected earlier, but will take the exploration one step further by defining some of the specific elements of your style that may lack precision. In larger teams that have more illustrator capacity, the concept art can cover a variety of different art topics and is usually not limited to one element of the visual design. It's common for larger development efforts to include concept art for all major characters and environments before going into production on game-ready assets. So it's all fine and great if you can create great art in an illustration, but what about in an engine? A major consideration in your art direction are the capabilities of your team and technology, and a good art director makes sure to prove out both early. We've done lots of videos on the different game engines available on the market, and it's fair to say there are big differences in what you can accomplish depending on how you choose your tech. Whether you go for AAA visuals with Unreal or choose to focus on an indie approach with something like GameMaker, you'll have to make your tech choice fit your vision. Professional-grade engines typically come with lots of rendering options right out of the box, from tools for lighting and shadows to convenient mesh and animation editors and systems that can help with post-processing visual effects. If you want to go to Hollywood quality with your art direction, you'll likely want to pick an engine that can support these goals. In some cases, you can still achieve pro-quality visuals in a more simple engine tech, but it may require significant customization. Make sure your engineering team is up to that task. Rendering work can be challenging work, and it's not an easy skill set to find. We've talked about how highly sought after these experts can be in the past. Check out this past video on the most wanted game dev roles to learn more. So for this stage, make sure to align your engineering team on your desired visual direction and let them chime in on what is reasonable. Making sure this alignment between art and tech is solid before production is key to working efficiently. So now you have your key art illustrated and you've identified that you have the tech and the team to deliver on your vision. Now, the next step is to create your key art assets in game-ready format. If you're making a 3D shooter, this might be a character model in Maya or Blender. If you're making a 2D flight simulator for mobile, it might be a plane asset created in Illustrator. As with past steps, the deliverable for this stage is really dependent on your type of game and the key elements of your gameplay. Bringing one or a few assets to be representative of a final look will show you what your vision will look like when you move from illustration to game-ready asset. These assets are typically created to alpha or pre-bug fix state. The asset will look similar to what you want to ship with outside of final tuning. The purpose of this stage is to again elicit feedback, first in your authoring software and then in engine. Another important aspect of this stage is that the first assets created will inform future development decisions. If you create a 3D character asset, its size and scale will inform animation on the skeleton and rig it will need to support. If you create an environment, the scope and detail can inform engineering on how performance and load times will be affected. There are a lot of decisions that will help downstream of the artist's approach, so get your first assets in the hands of your team members so that they can start planning on how to work around your vision. Now is the moment of truth. Take your completed asset or assets and combine them together to produce your first representative scene of gameplay. This is effectively your first demo build, and the first time you can allow a stakeholder to experience in-engine gameplay that captures your artistic vision. Sometimes this stage is called a vertical slice and can be used as a gate to allow the team to move into full production. It's typically a small but high-impact experience that addresses how the game will be fun. Another industry term for this phase is the creation of a core gameplay loop. This might mean representative models and textures, animations, and HUD elements, or it might mean a loop of key screens. The actual elements, as always, are contextual to what you're building, but it needs to look good and get people excited about your direction. Get this demo aligned with your vision and get feedback before heading into full production. So now that you have representative assets in engine and one moment built out, you should have enough alignment with stakeholders to push on the gas pedal with the rest of development. This means defining the rest of your art scope and moving into full production. This phase includes creating a list of all assets that need to be created, making estimates on their individual time to completion, and ensuring that you have the capacity to execute. You'll want to define must-have assets and front-load their development early. The nice-to-haves can come later. Also, keep in mind that gameplay design may change, so you'll need to account for iteration. The professionals typically break the game into chunks and drive one section to completion before starting another. This makes sure that if the team runs out of time, there is at minimum a portion of the planned game in a completed state. If you want more detail on how to create a professional-grade project plan like the one we describe here, check out the link above to a previous release we did on this topic, and we'll list it in the video description at the end of this video. Once all of your production work is done, the art team will shift focus onto tuning and bug fixing. This is your finaling stage, where the art group partners with the test group to remove any last issues in the visuals. The first stage of finaling is typically tuning, and this involves getting final feedback from stakeholders on any last changes. If the previous stages have been managed properly, the amount of editing during this final pass is typically small. Most effort will be put towards the high-impact assets, with an intent to use the time left in development as wisely as possible. Once tuning is complete, the next task is to complete a bug-fixing period. This involves a test team regularly reviewing the build and assessing severity, reproduction steps, and overall priority to fix. The types of issues that could come up are endless. An animation may not be timed properly, a texture may flicker, the game camera might not be at the right angle to see a model. The issues you'll uncover are really specific to your type of game. As with any game development, you'll never fix all the bugs nor address everything on the tuning wish list. At some point, you will have to consider the effort good enough and let the team move on to platform submission for eventual release. So what's left? Are we now done? Not yet, as there is one critical stage for the art team, and that's preparing materials for the marketing of the game. Social media posts, media interviews, store page optimization, gameplay trailers, all of these promotional efforts will require visuals from the game to help sell your product. Screenshots, video capture, and custom assets are now the focus for the team, and telling the right story with these items can help put attention to your game. Make sure to put real thought into this stage, as we've all seen countless great games get lost in the discoverability abyss because no one knew they existed. Make this stage count, and you are on your way to game development success. If you like this video and want more Ask Gamedev, check out this video on how to create a game development project plan, or this video on the best ways to source art for your game. If you want to check out Stela, the beautiful cinematic platformer shown in this video, it's available today on Xbox One and Apple Arcade.